Hello and welcome back to the ETS Season 2 Invitational. We're now going to be going right into winner's bracket round 4 with our last undefeated players still left in the tournament. We have Toth 201 versus aReNGee. The winner will go into the winner's bracket finals, and the loser will drop down to play against Sir Rhino. And then we're going to have Loco Pojo against Bobbert Joe, where the loser will drop down to play against Kampf Kroat. So we're going to start here with Toth versus aReNGee. So let's hop right into it.
Yeah, and this should be an interesting matchup. Shimmering Combri versus Big Combri. A lot of differences in decks, although they do share a similar card pool.
Yeah, we're probably going to see a lot of Seraph activations, a lot of big Sandstorm Titan Field board stalls. However, the Shimmering Combat deck from Toth does not have the mass removal.
Yeah, the Shimmering deck is more reliant on the card itself, like Shimmer Pack, to kind of act like a pseudo removal, transforming any scary units back into 4/4s.
Yeah, so basically what it is they're playing a lot of similar units, but they have different reset buttons. Like I Read Minds has Harsh Rule, whereas Toth just has Shimmer Pack. And then they have sort of different big mana threats, whereas Toth has Scouting Party and the threat of turning them large as Shimmer Pack or Xenon Obelisk. I Read Minds is playing Martial Ironthorn and Mystic Ascendant.
Yeah, this is a very interesting matchup. Who do you actually favor here in the early game?
Well, I think in the early game, Toth has it better, but I actually favor I Read Minds in the matchup just because of the power of Harsh Rule in unit-based matchups and the late game strength of Martial Ironthorn and Mystic Ascendant. Both of those units are very, very powerful if left unchecked, and Toth doesn't have a lot of ways to remove them.
Yeah, definitely very true. And I read minds as long as he doesn't have any power issues here. His hand is looking very solid. Seraph on 3, Titan on 4. You can have the Harsh Roll as a backup. And Toth over here just taking his time, getting his power base worked out. He's got those copies of Find the Way, new card that we have all been excited to play with recently.
Yeah, so it looks like I Read Minds is going to get on the board first, and he's got a follow up Sandstorm Titan to the Seraph, but even if he gets in a little early damage here, Toth is going to be able to stop it with his own Sandstorm Titan and the Scorpion Wasp.
Yeah, Scorpion Wasp, incredibly useful for dealing with Sandstorm Titans.
We'll see if I Read Minds actually swings his Seraph into the Scorpion Wasp here, and he does. So this is a perhaps a little too hasty attack.
Yeah, perhaps just a little bit. This is actually very interesting to see that he did elect to fire the Seraph off into that. It's not terrible. Like your Sandstorm Titan will be safe now if he had wanted to play it, but it would have just bounced into the other Sandstorm Titan over and over.
Yeah, well, and Toth also has a Vanquish for the Titan, but I think Ireed actually wants that Titan to get vanquished so that Mystic Ascendant doesn't get vanquished. Because Mystic Ascendant is one of those units where if you ever get to trigger its Empower twice, you feel like you just can't lose.
Yeah, you really want to see this go off. And we do see Toth getting the first Sandstorm Titan down, so I read Mind's now feeling pressured to get his own Sandstorm Titan down. We know Toth has that Vanquish in hand, though, so since I read Minds doesn't have a lot to do this turn, it's going to be very easy for Toth to just go ahead and vanquish this and then start actually punching down with his own Sandstorm Titan.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see if Ireed wants to wait for a turn and then play Mystic Ascendant with a power to get a 6/6 block for the 5/6 Titan, or whether he's just going to harsh rule it away.
Yeah, if we see even one more unit come down, I have to imagine that we would definitely see that harsh rule get fired off. But he may not value just cleaning up this Sandstorm Titan in the 1/1.
Yeah, he only has one harsh rule, like only one removal spell, so he does need to conserve it. And oh, Temple Scribe is a great pickup, giving him a chump blocker.
Yeah, Temple Scribe giving him a chump blocker, really nice there. And it looks like he's going to elect to just go ahead and fish out another Sigil. Going to get this one down in place so that he has the Mystic Ascendant available. And he's also got power up for Desert Marshal if he wants to play it. Not that there are a lot of really good targets on the.
Yeah, nothing right now, but if Toth plays Seraph, I'm sure that Irie Minds is just going to Desert Marshal at end of turn and then play Mystic Ascendant.
Yeah, I read very quick to snap sacrifice his little token into the Sandstorm Titan.
Ooh, and a second harsh rule. So now Irie doesn't have to be stingy with his master removal. And as soon as this Mystic Ascendant gets removed, he can just wipe the board up and start anew with a new Mystic Ascendant and a Seraph and a Sandstorm Titan.
Yeah,
I read mine's just dominant board position here.
yeah, read mine's board position looks great here, and Toth going ahead and silencing this Mystic Ascendant, hoping to pick up his 8th power there, so he can get Shimmer back down. And this is a little bit of why we see that Shimmer Pack nerf hurting. Like it's not the biggest deal in the world that Shimmer Pack went from 7 to 8, but it is. It does feel a lot worse when you do have to wait that extra turn. You are just trying to find that 8th power,
Yeah,
seeking the
it's
power even.
certainly affecting this game. And
Yeah,
Irie Mines is just bursting with options here. Sandstorm Titan solidifies the board stall. Seraph gets you a potential source of threats if you hit your 8th power. You could also just sit back and try to get a better harsh rule later on. Just a lot of options from iRead Minds.
yeah, and we'll see. I'm curious to see if Toth is going to want to sacrifice anything here. It's silence, so it's not of high priority. But we do see Irie Mines getting his own Sandstorm Titan down, and this is going to start to lock this board up a lot until Toth hits his 8th power. And now we're going to see the Shimmer Pack come down, transform his 2 tokens into useful Shimmer Packs, and probably see him go ahead and nerf this Mystic Ascendant and Sandstorm Titan into 4/4s.
Yeah, this definitely gives Toth a lot of good attacks now. But the nice thing for iRead Minds is that now he can just play a harsh rule and start rebuilding with all of these powerful sort of army in a can units. Like a Mystic Ascendant or a Seraph demands an answer all on its own.
Yeah, very true. And I mean, this is kind of honestly what Irie was looking for. Like he's looking to get a reset. Toth already having expended a lot of cards in his hand and a lot of units, so getting the reset here. And while Irie Minds doesn't know that Toth has a second copy of Shimmer Pack, you generally assume that most players are only going to get one of it a game. So he's got to be feeling pretty good right now about the fact that he's going to be able to clear up this first Shimmer Pack and like a big board.
Yeah, iRead actually just wants to draw power for Seraph and Mystic Ascendant now.
Yeah, he's just trying to draw his power out, and he's got he has the second harsh rule to clean up the next Shimmer Pack. But Toss just drawing straight gas. Like every turn for him has been so good so far, and after all that he's played, he still is holding the Marissan's Disciple, a Seraph, a Titan, and another copy of Shimmer Pack.
Yeah, I think that this is gonna be back and forth for a while. Both players just have a lot of material that they need to fight through in order to actually kill the other person.
Yeah, very true. Iron Minds has cards like Martial Ironthorn, doesn't he? That he can kind of eventually punch through.
Yeah, Martial Ironthorn, Mystic Ascendant, great in board stalls. Seraph, great in a board stall. Like Toph doesn't have an answer to this Seraph right now. Well, I guess he can Shimmer Pack it. Like,
Yeah,
I guess he has to.
yeah, but if you're Irie Minds, this is exactly what you want. Like you want to bait him into burning this Shimmer Pack. Now you're going to get another harsh roll off, and after 2 Shimmer Packs and him trying to burn your own unit, you should just be able to harsh roll, clean the board up, and get an actual reset. And now the Mystic Ascendant should come in for a lot of value next turn.
Yeah, the it just looks like if Toph doesn't draw a Vanquish or a Desert Marshal on his next turn, this Mystic Ascendant is just going to run away with the game.
Yeah, this Mystic Ascendant could very easily just take over the entire game. Definitely now that Toth has expended his Shimmer Packs, he doesn't have a direct way to interact with it. He does have his own Seraph, so it's not crazy that he could pull this game back himself, but the Seraph's going to need to put in a lot of work, and the Harsh Rule Irie Minds is packing in the back of his hand can always help take care of any board he builds.
Yeah, well, and this Seraph is just going to get Desert Marshal before it even gets to activate a single time.
Yeah, Seraph going to be a little sad about that with the Desert Marshal coming in, and Toth's hand all of a sudden not looking great, and we see double Mystic Ascendant coming down with the power. He picks up a Seek Power so he can go get another one for next turn, and he's got another Seek Power he was already holding, so he's going to be drawing 3 cards a turn for at least 2 more turns.
He does offer the trade for the 2 remaining Shimmer Packs here, which I think Toth should take while the getting is good. But even then, just the 1 remaining Mystic Ascendant is such a huge obstacle for him to overcome.
Yeah, Toth is going to need to hit big here off the top of his deck to get back in this game. He's going to need like a scouting party into another Shimmer Pack or something of the likes. And even then, like Irie Mind still has this other Harsh Rule in the back of his hand if the board ever gets too scary.
Yeah, Toth is actually only playing 2 Shimmer packs, so he's already used both of his packs.
Yeah, so Toth's game plan kind of a little expended right here. Now he's going to hope to draw into something like a Seraph and make it go off. Though we did note, like, there is another Desert Marshal in iReed's hand, so
Yeah, so I mean, Toth did draw the answer to this Ascendant. Like the Ascendant still already drew a card and like provided a bunch of advantage, but Ireed doesn't have a way to just take off with the game now. Once this Ascendant gets traded for, he doesn't really have any big threats left.
yeah, true. Doesn't have many big threats, but the Valkyrie Enforcer by itself providing a clock now with that Mystic Ascendant punching through, like iReed can really start to stack a clock on Toth and make him figure out how to win this game.
Yeah, and I'm not really sure what that is. I'm not sure how Toth wins this game. I guess if Ireed just bricks on relevant cards for several turns, and after he harsh rules, Toth draws a Seraph.
Yeah, here's an interesting question. Would you have double blocked Seraph there with your Desert Marshal and the Valkyrie? You might lose the Valkyrie, but you do get the Seraph off the board, even though it is silenced. Like it is just
I
a
like
body.
keeping the Valkyrie. I think you're on the offensive here. Like you have a Desert Marshal to ambush in if Toth ever gets aggressive with the attacks. So I like keeping the Valkyrie and putting him on a clock.
That's fair. He's just got so many resources here. Like this
Yeah,
is very over right now.
yeah. He drew a Seraph. I mean, it hits something weak, but even something weak is going to be enough to push for lethal over the next turn or two.
Yeah, Toth finding Scouting Party now. This was the card he needed like 1 or 2 turns ago, and he really needed like a Shimmer Pack or some Obelisks in play to go off with it. And is Toth playing Obelisk? Like, I have to imagine that would be included in, but we haven't seen it.
Yeah, he has a full set of obelisks in his deck.
Oh wow, and we see I Read Minds not going to play it, but does pick up the Great Parliament. Although he actually might play it.
Yeah, it
Uh,
would be for 3 owls here, and you know Toth has no master removal, so that's just almost certainly game over.
yeah, and he is going to punch in with some units here, and yeah, get in the 4/4. I like this attack out of I Read Minds. Like he's trying to force as much damage as possible. You just force Toth to like eat it with some tokens. Like clear the board up a little bit more, and you know you're reloading with the owls for lethal next turn. So you're going to put Toth in a bind. He's going to have to find an answer here, and Toth not playing Harsh Rule means that he's not going to have an answer. Like he's not going to have a way out of this.
Yeah, I would not be just surprised to see Toth concede as soon as the Great Parliament gets played.
Yep. And we will see. So Great Parliament getting 3 owls down. That's actually the best owls I've ever seen come out of a Great Parliament. Normally games are over before I actually see a player get to 12 power and cast that.
So Seraph hits a Copper Hall instead of a Roland's Honor Guard, so Toth is out of the game here.
Yeah, would have needed Roland's Honor Garden. Even then, like I don't think it's enough. I don't think it's ever enough here. Like that game was just way too out of control. And we kind of see what you were talking about at the beginning of the match, where I Read Minds, since he does have the bigger deck and a lot more of the like greedy in-game threats, he is able to allow this game to go longer and longer into the game, actually get many more turns into it, and just purely beat Toth on card advantage.
Yeah, that whole dynamic gets flopped over to be evened out. Actually, not really flopped after post board though, because Toth has 3 harsh rules, 2 crystallize, and a stand together in his sideboard, in addition to a 3rd copy of Shimmer Pack. So Toth is going to have tons of ways to swap a board stall of his own. Nothing quite the level of Marshall Ironthorn, but still a lot of powerful cards.
Yeah, I mean Marshall Ironthorn takes some build up too, and Toth has like a lot of powerful answers here. You are right. Like we're definitely gonna see those harsh rules and like the crystallizes come in. Although actually, interesting. Toth actually not electing to bring in any harsh rules. He is going to bring in 2 crystallizes, and he will bring in the. He's not playing Great Parliament in the main board, I don't think. So he did bring in the 3 Great Parliaments, and he brought in 2 protects as well.
Yeah, and
And
I Read Minds is going to get to go up to 4 Great Parliaments, which is a very, very powerful card against these Shimmer Pack decks because they don't really have any anti-flying cards.
no, they really don't. And we also see a couple other key cards I Read Minds bringing out. The Stand Together, I like. The Decays, going to be really helpful removing Xenon obelisks and even potentially things like permafrost. We also see, yeah, he brought in all the copies of Parliament, and not packing too much more than that, really. The decay, and he does bring in a single copy of Protect. So
Yeah, so I think they were in for a big grindy Cambrai mirror almost.
yeah, probably gonna see another big grindy game if I had to imagine. We
And
are
I
gonna
have to imagine that the big grindy game favors the player with a full set of Mystic Ascendants in their deck.
Yeah, Mystic's one of the greediest cards you can play, but when it goes off in these Combri type, it's not quite a mirror, but we'll call it a mirror for sake of argument. These Combri mirrors, then when you get to those big board stalls, the Mystic Ascendants really can just take over the game. Like every power you hit is, instead of being a dead draw, a 2/2 buff and a card. It's like a cudgel that draws a card.
All right, so looking at the hands here, this game Toth does have a Xenon Obelisk, so he's going to be able to win the Sandstorm Titan fights and the Night Chancellor Seraph fights. So that's a pretty crucial difference from last game for Toth.
Yeah, definitely, and that's why I was questioning where the Xenon obelisks were in his board last game. Like, I have to imagine almost anybody who plays any card named Shimmer Pack is going to play 4 Xenons in the main, but not seeing any last game kind of hurt his game plan a little bit. Like you said, like the Sandstorm Titans just kind of bouncing into each other, but when you have the bigger Sandstorm Titans, much easier situation for you to navigate.
So I Read Minds is really going to be able to do that all flyers beatdown plan. He's got 2 Valkyrie Enforcers and a Great Parliament that can come down over the next few turns and try to clock Toth out of this game before he can get out of control of Xenon Obelisk scouting party shenanigans.
Yeah, though interestingly enough, it's going to force I Read Minds to hold the Sandstorm Titan in his hand probably for most of this game.
Yeah, interestingly, if Toth plays the Titan here to ground the Valkyrie Enforcer, it's just going to get silenced by the second Valkyrie Enforcer. But if he plays the Xenon Obelisk, he isn't really doing anything. Like, he's just getting hit for 3 a turn.
Yeah, and I guess we're not. Yeah, he was going to commit to this Titan here. If he was going to play the Obelisk, he would have done it pre-combat to get in that extra point of damage.
Yeah, so Toth's anti-flying measures are completely non-existent for the time being once this Titan gets silenced.
Yeah, once the Titan gets silenced, though, that will pave way for the Seraph Toth is holding to actually be protected. And we do see the Stand Together floating around in his hand, which will help him against these harsh rules later.
Yeah, very true. Stand togethering a harsh rule, especially when your opponent has some units that'll die to that same harsh rule, is often a game-ending blowout.
Yeah, it creates those one-way board wipe effects. Very similar to Martial Ironthorn.
We're going to see Obelisk followed by Seraph well holding up Stand Together from Toth here.
Yeah, I definitely like getting the Obelisk down here. I think you get the Obelisk down, you start beating. You really force him to get in the way of this because you are taking 10. Like this is a non-trivial threat that he's got on board with. Even though it is silence, like the 6/7 Sandstorm Titan by itself is scary.
Yeah, so Ironthorn doubling the power drop from Read Minds here, meaning that he just needs to find 1 more power to have the Great Parliament provide 2 owls.
Yeah, and like that's the flip side of this is that like even though Ireed is facing down a lot of damage out of Toth, with the Martial Ironthorn acceleration, it's possible for him to very easily just close this game out. If he does decide to get in with the 6 here and put his opponent down to 16, if he finds another power, he can get 2 owls down next turn, push another 6, put his opponent on 10, and then you still have you'll have that 14 damage in the air on the next turn. That's
The
going
only
to be
problem
really
is
hard to deal with.
that so Toth's Obelisk Field beatdown here might actually force Read Minds to harsh rule with the Vanquish on the Ironthorn here. Like, so Read is going to go down to 9, and Toth has the option of holding up Stand Together.
Yeah, I mean, if we see the harsh rule come out in the Stand Together, this is definitely going to close the game out in Toth's favor. So I mean, he's got to hold this up here. There's no other way, which may force Ireed, yeah, without picking up another power to make 2 owls with the Great Parliament.
So
And
Ireed is considering the Stand Together here and opting to not attack with his Valkyrie Enforcers and just prevented himself from losing the game on the spot there. Very heads up play by Read Minds.
yeah, that was a huge play right there out of him. Like he he absolutely had to understand that the stand together could be floating around, and that Toth was representing it with his power being held up, and elects not to harsh rule himself to an early game loss.
Yeah, so I read mine's the goal for him now is to get up to 10 power so he can harsh rule twice in one turn and get through that stand together.
Yep, that's gonna be his goal, and with the Martial Iron Thorn gone, it's gonna be a little bit trickier to have go off. Alternatively, he has like Toth is taking a big turn for consideration here, and since iReNGee did not try and harsh rule, he just played Sandstorm Titan and grounded his own units. Possible Toth might overextend here and not hold stand together up, but he is doing that. He is respecting the harsh rule.
Yeah, if Toth had scouting partied and gotten his board harsh rule, that would have been a disaster, and he recognizes that. So now you kind of have a awkward standoff here where neither player can act first or they'll get blown out.
Yeah, and at this point, since we have seen the prompt come up, like I read, I'm sure is positive of that stand together floating around. He's going to be basing his game plan around it. Well, I said that until we saw this board swing here. Although this could just be a refill board swing, but I have to imagine we're going to see the harsh rule come off this.
Yeah, all three of I read mine's units are gonna die if Toth blocks here. Uh, so I'm not sure what I read is thinking here. He was playing around the stand together before, and now he just decided to not play around it anymore.
Yeah, very interesting. Like he's going to fire off harsh rule, and this will get stand togethered, and that should close the game out. There's lethal damage on board, and nothing else for iReNGee to play that turn. So that will take the game to a split series, 1-1. We're going to go back into sideboarding and see how these players adjust their game plans from here.
Yeah, so I read. I guess what he had to do there was just play the Sandstorm Titan, embrace the board saw a little more, and get up to 10 power. But what he was afraid of was that uh, Toth is gonna just at some point just play the stand together proactively at end of turn and then start like activating Seraph or playing scouting party or whatever, and I read minds would just fall too far behind.
Yeah, that's what he was hoping for there, and that game plan worked out pretty well for Toth. Like that stand together was, I was just backbreaking. Like seeing the harsh rule take out your own board and do nothing to the enemy player like you were hoping to. Just absolutely nothing is just it's backbreaking. Like you were absolutely correct in that iReNGee had to wait for 10 power before he could fire off those harsh rules. He had to respect the stand together.
Yeah, it actually does worse than nothing. It gives all of your opponent's units +1/+1.
Yeah.
I mean, I read has a very nice hand here. A couple Temple Scribes to clog up the board early. A couple Find the Way. Well, one Find the Way echoed to hit all of his power drops, and eventually a Mystic Ascendant.
Yeah, Toth over here with a bit of a slower hand, but it's not like iReNGee is going to be off to any kind of blazing start. Just getting the Temple Scribe down, probably going to do a little bit of power fixing over the next turn or two, which will give Toth plenty of time to go ahead and suit up and try and get these Titans down, the Marissan's Disciple, and hopefully lead the scouting party.
Yeah, Irie does not have a particularly good answer to Scouting Party right now. It doesn't look like there's going to be a huge board stall by turn 6. So he'll only be able to block and kill a couple of those Yetis.
Yeah, Todd hitting interesting problems with his power, though. He will at least get to 4, fortunately, thanks to the Amber Acolyte, but he is going to have to find some power to actually be able to get to that scouting party. Luckily for him, he's got a lot of very powerful 4 units at his hand.
Instantly decision for Irie here. You can either play the Great Parliament and start beating down with the 4/4 Owl, or he can play Temple Scribe and Find the Way and start developing his power. And he opts to go for the Owl, and I really like this. I think that if you put some pressure on the Shimmer Pack deck early and force them to not use their cards optimally, that you have a much better chance of winning.
Yeah, very true. We are going to see Toth go ahead and lock this down with the Sandstorm Titan, which I'm assuming we will see iReNGee answer with the Valkyrie Enforcer, which he does. So he can start trying to push this air damage. Probably get 4 in with the Owl here.
So a somewhat awkward thing about this is you think, yeah, I silenced my opponent's Titan with my Valkyrie Enforcer. Now my flying units can attack. But that Titan is still a 5/6. Like, it's still much bigger than any other units at that cost, and it can still just beat you down. And that's what we saw last game. Like, a couple of Titans got silenced, and then Toth just beat iRead Minds down with the 6/7 Sandstorm Titan.
Yeah, it's very true. We have a very interesting clock dynamic right now. It looks like iReads is going to be have 3 turns to go ahead and kill Toth, but if Toth gets another Sandstorm Titan down here, he could potentially accelerate his own clock past 3 turns without forcing iRead Mind to hold some blockers up.
Yep, and iRead Minds has another chump blocker with his Temple Scribe. And is going to silence the Titan. And so he's just going for the kill you in the air over 3 turns plan while I chump block your giant Titans.
Yeah, and I think since he got the Temple Scribes, like that game plan is seeming like it's going to work out really solid. Toth probably going to have to use this Scorpion Wasp and maybe the there's the Sandstorm Titan, but we see the Desert Marshal in hand, so we know that there will be a third silence coming down if Toth thinks that he can get away with locking these units down.
So I'm afraid what's going to happen is that iRead is going to play this Mystic Ascendant and a power and try to block these Titans and get blown out by Stand Together again. It's just Stand Together is coming up enormous impact for Toth in this match.
I think you might be correct, but I also think it depends on what Toth plays here. Like if Toth plays the Sandstorm Titan, there's no doubt in my mind iRead's just going to main phase Desert Marshal, go ahead and silence that and try and force through another 10 in the air, put Toth down to 3. Because that will be a lethal attack on the very next turn, and Toth isn't really going to have a lot he can respond with. He can get in with a couple of the Titans and push iRead down, but iRead will just have he will have lethal damage next turn, even with a Scorpion Wasp. And yeah, like if he had the power to play Mercen's Disciple and Scorpion Wasp, it might be enough. But even then, I don't think so.
Yeah, that's a very good point. This he's not gonna have time to whittle down the flying force with this Wasp and Marison's Disciples, and he's just gonna get knocked out of the game by this Great Parliament and Vulcan Enforcers.
Yeah, and I think this is going to push Toth down to our losers bracket. He will be the first of our 4 winners finalists today to fall down the losers bracket, and we'll see Sir Rhino in the next round.
Yeah, the Toth is doing the math, but without his 4th copy of Sandstorm Titan, I just don't see a way for this to work out for him. iRead Minds could forget to block, and it still wouldn't be lethal.
Yeah, and in fact, there's probably some validity to not full blocking here. That way you have the access to an extra unit. Like, Toth's going all in on this game plan. It's unlikely for him to be able to string many units together. He's at 3. This unfortunately is just not going to be enough.
Silence is a very, very powerful mechanic.
Yeah, really though. That Stand Together was almost enough if it was unblocked, but that was actually unfortunately still 1 damage short. So yeah, iRead just going to close this out with all the flyers. Decided to go on like a flying game plan, and even though Toth had 3 Sandstorm Titans, and like I don't even think we touched that point, but like Toth did just draw 3 Sandstorm Titans in his top 20 cards in his deck. Like that was incredible out of him, but all 3 of them matched with silences. And this is kind of the power that Combri brings, is like they have the Desert Marshals, they have the Valkyrie Enforcers. It's very easy for them to just lock your units out.
Yeah,